Hi everybody. I'm making a really quick video here to offer some clarifications about the participation points for the Zoom discussions. I've had a few people write to me and they're a little bit confused, and I get it. It's something new. So just, I'll clarify a couple of things. I'm still in that same document that you can retrieve from distributed documents under the section entitled The Basics and about the Zoom discussions. And so just to remind people, you don't need to come to all of them. You're expected to come to 5 as an active participant, and you'll get a point for your active participation for those 5 for a total of 5%. You can come to more, and if you wind up coming to one where you're not planning to be an active participant because you haven't prepared anything, but you wind up chiming in a significant way and actively participating, you'll get your point. So, this is going to happen during our class time on Thursdays, and if you aren't planning to come but you get that notification that there's a class, you can ignore it. You won't be penalized for not coming. So, how do you get your points? Well, that's where people are a little bit confused, understandably. So, when I talk about active participation, that can take a number of forms. First of all, you don't have to speak, so if you're really intimidated or there's another barrier to you kind of speaking out loud, that's okay. You can write your comments or questions in the chat, and that will still count. And even if that is still too much for you, talk to me or drop me a line, okay, and we'll figure out something. So what's important is that you elaborate a little bit. So here's an example where you wouldn't get a point because it's not really, it's like, I don't understand the whole biocultural thing. And that's it, right? That's not really engaging. You're just, you can just have looked at that word and picked it out and say, yeah, I'm just going to say this word. I want to see that you kind of at least tried to, you read a little bit, and what is it about that term that confuses you, okay? So here would be something more appropriate. So I read that part about, biocultural, and I'm confused because often I hear people talk about the evolutionary reasons for the cultural things that we do, like the way our brains work, and sometimes it's about gender or a bunch of other things, and it's often, and we learn this in even in psychology classes. We talk about how our hormones affect the way we think and our genes. And so when I was reading that part about biocultural, it kind of, I'm not sure if I understood it correctly, but I feel like they're saying that culture is just as important as biology, and that's where I'm a bit confused. So if it's biocultural, does it mean that we're more biological than cultural, or are we more cultural than biological? Because I've heard of that whole nurture-nature debate thing too, where they're saying that the culture that's around us has more of an influence than our genes. So what do anthropologists say about this? And that's it. So Jackie the teacher is back. So that was maybe, I talked for maybe a minute, but I showed that I read this stuff, and I'm also referring to other things that I've learned, and so I'm looking at how this new information is confusing because it's kind of contradicting some of the other stuff I've learned, say, in other classes. I'm asking questions about it. That's what active participation is, and you're throwing out this question but showing that you actually did put some thought into it and tried to figure it out on your own. It's okay to just ask, I don't understand this word at all, but then that wouldn't be an active participation thing. That's just something you're asking me for help in during office hours, or in these chats too. It's going to be open to people to just ask these short questions too, but to get those active participation marks, I want you to go deeper. It doesn't have to be a question. If everything made sense to you and you get it, then you can elaborate on something that you found interesting. And again, it can be in a way where you're making connections with something from another class. So maybe you had another class where they talked about how race is socially constructed, and like those kinds of the point in history where this kind of happened and helped justify colonization and slavery and things like that. And you can tell us about that class where you learned this, or a book you read about it, or maybe it's one of the anecdotes. There are little anecdotes in the reading, like this opening thing, or maybe like you can relate to something that you've experienced that's similar to that. It can really be anything. It can be a mix of a comment and a question. And also if you're there and another student asks a question or brings something up and you respond in some depth, that will count too. Okay, so I'm not asking for the moon here. I'm not asking for an oral presentation, not even like a 5-minute lecture. But if we're a small enough group and you want to talk for 5 minutes, that's okay too. But I'm just not expecting that. So just about maybe a minute. If you're typing it in, it can be a few lines. Really, it's more about quality than quantity. So keep that in mind, and give it a shot. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you this Thursday during our class time.